I love the neighborhood. I love the community.
East Cleveland is not a dying city. There are people here committed in the long term to making this a great place. Our students and we as faculty designed a survey project to survey every vacant property in the city of East Cleveland. The goal was to determine which houses are suitable for rehab and which houses need to be demolished, because federal funds are designated for demolition and rehab. One of the things that I believe is possible through this East Cleveland Community Partnership is really the revitalization of East Cleveland so that it becomes a destination for people wanting to work in University Circle, but it also becomes a safer, revitalized community for the people who already live here.
I've lived here for 4 years now. It's a community of people who work, who love their neighborhood. If you can see past some of the, the slum and the blight, that's kind of shocks you. But if you look down most of the streets, it's a beautiful place. All of the homes have their own character, and it's just a nice community.
We've already begun to see a change in energy and in focus in the community. Our Mandel School students really understand what it means to look at the assets, even in the midst of deprivation and deterioration. And so it changes their thinking, and they become more excited about the potential for change and the opportunity to be a catalyst and an agent of change in the world.
All right, so the other part of the aspiration is we created a very sophisticated logic model, and I would say we've done about an eighth of this, but this is aspirational again, of some of the things we'd hope to be able to do in terms of increasing investment, creating planning and design, as well as actual development. And so some of these things have happened. But just to move forward, our goal was to shift the narrative about, as you saw in the logic model, to shift the narrative that is about East Cleveland. As I told you, undergraduates were told not to go to East Cleveland. It was seen as not a place to invest. There's all these stereotypes, as you know. And so we said, how can we begin to shift that? Well, one of the ways is and this came up when our students went out and did field work, is they began to see the tremendous assets that were in East Cleveland, and these are just some of those. And so we began to elevate those, find ways to build relationships with these partners, and create partnerships, and elevate these assets. And so that was one part of that. And then the second part was in 2009, we did a massive undertaking, and we conducted, in partnership with the Northeast Ohio Alliance of Hope, for Hope, NOAA, with Travell Harp, is the executive director. And we worked with NOAA and actually the East Cleveland Fire Department, and Doug Zook volunteered the firefighters to kind of be there as support as well. And all of our first year students in 5 classes in this Macro Foundation Skills class went and did a visual inspection of every residential street and every vacant property they could identify. We then took that information, let me say a little more about that. So they went street by street, and then these groups developed assessments that were written assessments focused on the impact of that vacant housing on the quality of life, and they did additional research. And we calculated as a school that was a contribution of $50,000 in labor from the student labor that was free, as well as $7,500 from the Center on Urban Poverty and Community Development, which did GIS mapping and data analysis as an in-kind contribution, and actually trained some of the city employees in that process as well. What we found is that 20% of all the parcels with residential structures were vacant, 40% of all the vacant structures that probably needed to be demolished were rated in a D or an F, and there were 236 vacant lots, 4% of all of the residential parcels. The students then developed 75 proposals that were to address the impact of that vacant housing on education, on safety, and employment, workforce development, and seniors. And then they created these unified case projects that were presented to about 75 people, including City Council and the Mayor, at the East Cleveland Public Library. I should note that this project actually began under the previous mayor. So we've always said in our aspirational purpose statement that our partnership is with the community of East Cleveland. And to be honest, the previous mayor, during the election, went to the Plain Dealer and said that we supported him. And I had to make it clear, we support the community of East Cleveland and all elected officials. And so we didn't take a stance on the position of who should be mayor. We said we work with whoever the community elects. It's not our decision to do that. But we made a smooth transition, and one of the things that happened as a result of that in our meeting with Mayor Norton is when he took office, he made it very clear, he took a strategic position to say, okay, this is all, just so you know, the red and the darker red is an F grading, the orange is a D grading, and then the green is vacant land. But you'll see there's a lot of vacant property right here. This is Euclid Avenue, and Case is right here. And the mayor took a strategic position, which he can talk about, to say, we're going to concentrate the neighborhood stabilization funds on that area. And so I'm going to turn it over to him. So we provided this, both the data behind this and the map, to the incoming mayor, and then this is what he did with it. So we'll have the mayor talk, and then I'll come back and say some of the lessons we learned from that. And I can push through these slides if you want.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone.
And I should just say, I can never control what he says or how long he talks. And so we'll see where this is going to go.
You're right, Mark. You can never control what I say or whatever.
He gets out of hand, I will heckle.
Yeah, very good, very good. But we have something for hecklers, too. Well, it's wonderful to be here, and it's great to be invited back to one's alma mater. And I was just saying it's a remarkable thing as a CSU student who went to the old Levin College, Professor Keating, you remember that, where most of my classes were held in the basement. I took that personal after a while. And, oh, the lower level, I'm sorry. The basement, where most of my classes were held. But it was amazing today to come. I didn't know that there was a Parker Hannafin Hall, but to know that Parker Hannafin Hall not only exists, but exists right next to the parking garage where I was able to find a space on the lower level, not the basement, but the lower level. That's a remarkable thing. So this university has come a long way, and it's great to be here. Those of you who watch the news and know anything about East Cleveland, those of you who are from here, you know that we have a long history, some of which we love, others of which we want to change. And Mark and Case have been a wonderful partner in doing that. What we really want to do is change people's minds about East Cleveland. And changing people's minds sounds simple, but when you think about the process of what it takes to change someone's perception and mind about a city that's had the history and has the current perception that East Cleveland has, it can be a tremendous undertaking. In fact, as a mayor, if I changed and if we changed every single thing about East Cleveland and improve everything dramatically, there are still many people who will always have the same old perception of East Cleveland. We could work our tails off and actually do good work. Some people's minds will never ever change. So it's a very, very difficult thing to do. But we're not out there to change everybody's mind or recruit everybody. We want the few people who will believe, the few people who make it work, a few people who are willing to be pioneers and invest on the ground level or the lower level or the basement of the work, because that's where the good work is done. As Mark said, there was a good piece of information that was provided to me as the incoming mayor. That was the identification relatively early on of the urban impact of the housing foreclosure crisis, the financial crisis. And that was, yes, people are being taken away from their homes, having their homes taken away from them. The economy has hit the tank. The entire housing market and industry has done something that we have never seen it do before. Houses lose the majority of their value in an overinflated market, and it hits everybody like a bomb. In East Cleveland in particular, which already had a particularly fragile housing market with particularly fragile families who cannot deal with this sort of thing, people who did buy their houses at the top of the market, people who were in exotic loan situations were just washed away. We had a slow motion. Everybody saw what happened to New Orleans in Katrina. We had a slow motion Katrina over about 5 years in our housing market and housing stock. It was crazy. We knew that there was something wrong But what Mark and Company helped us do was to quantify and identify what that problem really was. We had a problem based on a number of factors with vacant and abandoned houses. A percentage of our housing stock was standing vacant, standing vandalized, that makes safety issues. It makes our city services less efficient. Many of our police and fire calls actually are to vacant and abandoned structures. They respond because there's more likely to be a fire, there's more likely to be an injury, there's more likely to be criminal activity taking place at a structure where there is no one living there and it's vacant and abandoned and open than there is in an occupied structure. And what it means, Mr. Keating, from a city efficiency standpoint, is that the money we spend on police and fire is spent in many cases to address places where nobody lives. That's inefficient. If a city's money and resources are being spent to address places where nobody lives, that's inefficient. We want to spend our safety and security money where people live. So by taking care of vacant and abandoned houses, meaning wiping them off the face of the earth, for every one that we wipe out, there is one less house, one less building that our police and fire have to respond to that nobody lives in, and they can focus more and more and more of their time where people live. It's making use of our resources where we spend them where people are, not where people aren't. There was billions of dollars in economic development, and maybe $1 billion, maybe I'm exaggerating, of economic development taking place right up the street from East Cleveland. East Cleveland in general is in some state of poverty, with the exception of a few pockets, while there is thriving economic activity right across the city border at University Circle. There was zero with us. It's amazing that without a wall being built, there is a wall there today, and there has been a wall there where the economic development impact and the impact on people's lives, improving opportunities for children who we never know what they're capable of, it stops at University Circle, and East Cleveland is left in the dark. We recognized that that door had to be unlocked. The door that had been slammed shut on Euclid Avenue decades ago had to be unlocked, so we unlocked that door. We also recognized that for everything that is being built at University Circle, every time they wanted to build something, they had to tear something else down. I said, those guys are landlocked. We could open up our doors to University Circle. The potential impact of that economic and education machine is greater than the land mass that they have available to them. We could allow University Circle to have a greater impact to fulfill its mission beyond its own borders if we were to simply unlock the door. We could be an asset to University Circle and to Case that they don't have currently and can't get from anybody but us. Instead of being the eyesore of the neighborhood, we could be the asset to the what is the fastest growing economic engine in the state of Ohio is University Circle. And if we allowed them extra land to build out their currently landlocked facilities, we could actually be heroes and contribute something to the process. But before Mark, we didn't have much technology available to us. We didn't have much expertise available to us. And Professor Keating, I hate to keep calling you out, but as you know, as budgets get sliced, many things like planning are the first thing to go. Forecasting is the first thing to go. Things that people don't think that they need today to plan for tomorrow are the first things to go, and in some cases, those are the most important functions of a city because it can't survive without planning. So we eliminated those things many years ago, and we don't have people who can do the type of work that Mark did. We wanted to engage the university because they could provide that brain work for us. They could provide credibility when we went to look at foundation funding, when we went to implement programs given to us by the state of Ohio. They gave us the dollars, we weren't sure how to implement the programs. But we also realized that cities and universities have different goals. The goals of academia are noble. Academia encourages dialogue, fosters ideas, the exchange of ideas, and through that, new thought, studies, academic-based research, lots of facts and lots of information, credible thoughts, and things like that. And once all that talking is done, and there's a paper published, that's it. Cities, on the other hand, if all I did as a mayor was talk about things and exchange ideas, I will never be reelected again. Cities focus on physical change, physical infrastructure, building new amenities, getting rid of blight, and maintaining safety forces, picking up trash. Cities actually do physical things that without a city picking up trash every week that you set on your curb, or if you're in Shaker, they come in your backyard and get it. All that trash would pile up. We can't just talk about trash pickup, we have to do it. If someone, God forbid, has their house broken into, their car stolen, their physical person injured, we can't just talk about we wish we had something to address that, or we can't figure out just the root problem of that. We have to send police. If there's a car accident where someone's life hangs in the balance, we can't just talk about it and say, ooh, look at the car accident. We have to send EMS and ambulances, in some case fire, out to address the problem. We can't just talk about it. So Mark and I were very open and explicit about this, that if we engage in a partnership, it cannot just be the university doing some research and delivering to us a paper, and we say, hey guys, is that all you're going to do? Because that's the history of the Case Western Reserve and East Cleveland partnership. So we knew from the outset that it had to be different. And we wanted to use it to give people a vested interest in East Cleveland.